Hi everyone, today we are going to be looking at the Rapid FIDE World Chess Championship. And here I'm going to cover the 5th round of some of the top chess players. I can't cover everyone because there's too many games, there's hundreds, and I can't cover all the rounds either. So I'm going to do the 5th round, the top players. The time control is 15 plus 10, and let's take a look at the first game. The first game is between Magnus and Denis Losevic. Magnus playing black. Here, let's get started. Here, Denis plays d4. Magnus plays d5, c4, and c6 to get a Slav defense. After we trade, knight c3, bishop f4, knight c6, and e3. Here, Magnus plays a6 to prevent knight to b5 in case of anything over there. Rook c1, bishop f5, and it's just normal developing right here. And queen b3, attacking the b7 pawn. Here, Magnus plays a weird kind of move, like rook a7, but nevertheless, it's not bad, as you can see from an eval, but it is a bit awkward. And here, Denis plays bishop e2, bishop e7, castles, knight d7. Here, Magnus might be trying to play this knight b6 idea, I'm guessing, and maybe something like knight a5 and knight to c4, and maybe f6 and e5. It's pretty common for white, actually, sometimes, but yeah, knight d7. Knight e4, preventing knight b6, maybe playing knight to c5 himself, right, Denis? And after pawn takes, creating an outpost on d6. So, and after that, you can play your knight to d4, so it's a reasonable move. g5, Magnus is playing a bit aggressive. And here, Denis plays bishop to e5. I'm guessing he didn't play bishop to g3 because he was scared of h5 by Magnus, and he was going to get attacked. So he played bishop e5. But I was wondering why not f6, and then play h5. But the computer thinks f6 also isn't really good after h5, because black's king is too exposed here. So you have to keep your own king safe before attacking. But nevertheless, Magnus didn't play f6. So he probably didn't like something here, and the engine agrees with him. So here, after bishop e5, Magnus castles, and now bishop g3. So now h5, and now Denis has something prepared. So now he plays h3, and now he moves his knight. So he moves his knight back to h2 here, and now he has a advantage, like you guys can see according to eval, because Magnus's king is pretty exposed, right? And the g pawn is very up. So here, Denis plays knight to h2. We'll see in a second. Attacking the g4 pawn. So yeah, knight h2 played, and now knight f6 guarding the pawn. Queen d1 attacking again, and knight e4 and bishop f4. So now Denis is up a pawn, and king g7 apparently is a mistake. Maybe because I'm not really sure, but right now Magnus is probably preparing rook h8. But anyway, Denis has a lot of counterplay on the queen side, right? And he's up a pawn, like f3, knight b6. So overall, it's pretty good. He plays g3, preparing king g2, getting a left, and knight f3, maybe preparing knight e5. Okay, finally the rook entering back to the game. King g2, queen f6. Magnus maybe trying to look for play on the h file, right? Or maybe something like queen h6, queen h3, infiltrating on the h file. Here, Denis plays knight c3, trading pieces, and they keep trading. And knight h4. I mean, square h4 is kind of a semi-outpost. There's no pawns that can attack it, so it's a really good square. Now he blocks the black rook and black queen, and it always puts pressure. So now the d5 pawn hanging, the f5 pawn looks a bit weak. So knight h4. And if you want to trade it off, you're going to lose your pawns, right? So that's too slow. Magnus plays knight f6, rook h1, setting up discovered attacks here on the queen. Not right now because you're going to lose the rook, right? But in the future, you're going to set up discovered attacks. After king f8, queen d3, here Denis plays knight g6, winning the game. If you take with the queen, then you lose the rook. You take the knight, then you lose your queen, right? If you take the knight with the queen, then you lose your rook, and you lose the game. Before, the king was protecting the rook, right? So you couldn't play knight takes f5 or knight g3. But here was saying that if you can't play knight f5, right? Because your king is guarding the rook. So After knight g3 takes, Dennis is up a queen. Well, for a knight and a rook, but it's basically game over here. And they keep shuffling, and here Magnus Carlsen resigns the game in a second. And here Magnus resigns the game because of the two outside pass pawns, the a4 pawn and the b2 pawn. They're outside pass pawns. And if you guys watched yesterday's round 4, round 3, round 2, and round 1, Magnus also had a game where he had two connected pass pawns. And he had a game like that, and he was defending on the two pawns. And here, anyway, Magnus resigned because all his pawns were weak. He's down a lot of material and the outside pass pawns. So, yeah. So Dennis takes a win, very big win. And yeah, let's move on to the next game here between Levon Aronian playing white against Vladar. And here, I'm just going to quickly go back to the beginning. And yeah. Okay, so Levon plays e4, and we get an Italian here. And here Levon plays knight c3. So I'm just going to share with you guys the variation I play because I think it's very useful. And let's flash it quickly. So I play c3 after knight f6. I play d3. So yeah, just guarding the pawn and preparing d4 later. So here, if your opponent plays d5, a lot of them do. It's a blunder because after that you have queen b3. You can see the eval attacking f7 pawn. Bishop e6, you grab the pawn, not there. Grab the b7 pawn. The knight is attacked, so they move it, and queen b5 is a fork, and you win the game immediately. So that really works a lot in blitz, so you guys can try that. But most of them are going to play d6. I play bishop e3, waiting for them to play bishop to g4. So I'm going to show you guys what happens if they play bishop g4, okay? So here, if as black, they play something like bishop g4, I'll show you guys the attacking plan quickly. But bishop e3 is always a useful move. So let's say black plays right now just bishop g4, knight b d2, and now you're attacking. You're supporting your knight, right? You play castles. You play knight f1, and they can play any move, such as let's see, maybe you can play rook e8, developing a rook, right? You play h3. You attack their bishop again with knight g3. Now you just play queen e2. Knight h4, you can also play that, but queen e2 first, I like that more. h6, you attack their bishop again. Notice their f7 pawn after knight h4 is pinned, right, by the bishop, so they don't do anything, they don't move their bishop, then you just take it, and you're completely winning. So it doesn't really matter. You play knight h4, they have to move their bishop. You play knight f5, right? So they think your knight's really strong, right? They're feeling some pressure that their king might be a bit weak, so they play d5 trying to open the position, right? Because you're not castled. They play queen f3. So now they think, oh, maybe I need to guard the d5 pawn, maybe your knight's a bit too strong. So now they might try to trade it off. But now you play knight to h6, check, and now you take their f6 pawn and you win the game. So you just didn't see that. And knight h5, bishop h6, and you win the game. In the game, though, Levon played knight to c3, so this is more common at amateur level. So, but it's nevertheless not losing. It's not bad. Knight f6, d3. And we'll just quickly zoom through here. Sorry, my mouse was a bit bad, kind of like scroll through. But we reached this kind of position, and now a lot of times in different variations, there's g5, g4. But anyway, here we trade all the pieces. And now black is attacking white, right? Kind of the f file's open, and maybe in the future we can use the attacking plan I showed you. Maybe knight e7, knight g3 here, and you sack the knight, but it's very slow and probably will not happen. But yeah, queen g6, putting some more pressure on the g file. Knight h4. Now Levon tries to break through, right? He's getting attacked, but somehow he finds a way to get a good position, right? Here he maneuvers, and he goes in. Now his knight's really powerful on f5, right? So the momentum kind of shifted. Now Levon's the one attacking. And he's attacking the h6 pawn, g7 pawn, and putting a lot of pressure. Maybe the h pawn will go forward, maybe the g pawn will go forward. Nevertheless, he's putting lot of pressure. So here maybe king g2, rook h1, and he's trying to attack, right? So he snatches a pawn here, right? And he gets the material balance. Now they trade pieces. Really nice move here to neutralize the knight. And yeah, just to trade pieces. And if Levant takes the d6 pawn, his king's getting attacked. So they trade. Now Levant's up one pawn. But it's very drawish because now it's equal material because it's heavy pieces. Especially queen endgames or rook endgames are both heavy pieces, or all heavy pieces, all three. But it's usually a draw, especially since the pawns are also on the same side, basically. So yeah. Just gonna shuffle a bit. And they keep shuffling, 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 and they trade. And here, they just keep shuffling, checking, and now they repeat and make a draw. So this game ends in a draw, a decent result for both of them. Maybe Lovan's not as happy because he's higher rated, but yeah, let's take a look at the next game. Between Fabiano Caruana and Svein, I think that's how you pronounce it. And Fabi here is playing white, and he starts off with e4 just like the last game you saw. e5, and we have another Italian. But this time Fabiano goes for more of a way like we saw in the World Chess Championship, where like Ding played a5. You guys watched that match. So Ding played a5 to try to put some pressure here. So that's also what Fabi does. Maybe a bit of inspiration. And now we get this position here. He played bishop a7 because there's b4 tempos. So we get this sort of position. And just know that when this pawn structure, when white's pawns are further up, c3, d4, e4, is white is always slightly better against black. Anyway, we get this position, and Fabi's having a really nice position, right? He can attack on the queen side. We can see it's pretty obvious. See, he's putting pressure in the center, right? And he can use the attacking plan I showed you guys to attack on the king side, right? So Fabiano's attacking on all three sides, and he has a really nice position. But here, Fabi kind of like, after bishop e8, he kind of extends a bit too much now. So now, Svein, according to the computer, is able to break out with something like c6. And after c4, c5, Fabi's pawns are getting kind of like pressured, right? He's forced to lose one. So after c5 here, maybe he's attacking the a6 pawn to retreat. But now Svein is completely back in the game, right? He's up a pawn, he's very active, but since his pawns are really weak and Fabi has an outside pass pawn, even though he's up a pawn, it's not completely winning. Rook a8 is a miss for the computer, but I think you missed knight e4, and if you take and you take, then you lose your queen, right? So that loses, and if not, and you just take the queen, then you take the rook with check, so we can take in between move. After everything is traded, you're up 2 points of material, and you should win this game. Well, not win, but you're definitely a lot better. But since it's Fulitz, he probably missed it. Understandable. And here he takes the pawn, and after okay, bishop f1. So now c4 is a mistake. He might be trying to now utilize the pawn. As we'll see what happens in the game. Fabi here confidently tries to take the pawn. We see that happens. And here in this position, g4, he's trying to get the knight, right? You only have to mind the computer because the computer is always saying this is wrong, that's wrong, but after all of these things happen, a6 and knight f4. So a6 apparently was a blunder because of knight f4, and now he's attacking, Svein's attacking Fabi's position, but nevertheless it's probably holdable. The knights, he's trying to use the pass pawns on the e file, and maybe use his kingside pawns to like maybe make a pass pawn. But in blitz, this is not very easy to win, as Fabi also has a pass pawn on a6, and maybe use the c pawn as decoy. But rook d2 and rook a1 is a blunder. He probably just didn't want to lose, right? Because you can also very much lose with the a pawn. So they just trade everything off into a more or less one of those grandmaster draws again, the rook endgame, and here they make a draw. So this game again ends in a draw. Svein is probably pretty happy with this result, but Fabi, since he's the higher rated person, he's probably a bit upset, but nevertheless it's not a bad result. So let's take a look at, I believe this is the final game. Here we're going to be taking like Hikaru versus Zaven. And we get a Sicilian here. And again, I'm going to show you one of the openings I play here. I play the Moroxi structure. So after knight f6 or something, knight c6, you play c4. And if we play e5, I'm just going to quickly show you guys a line. And we develop. You guys can pre-move all of these, by the way. Just bishop e3, bishop e2, queen d2. I like queen d2 first because you always threaten them to play. You threaten long castle, but you're never going to do that basically. I'm not a Sicilian player, so I'm not sure the move order for black. But let's just say they play something like queen c7, rook c1. Now you see, you just played these moves and you're already better according to the computer. Why? Because you have this simple plan of knight d5, right? And sometimes if an e pawn, you can even sack it using the pin. Let's say they play this Sveshnikov structure with, not Sveshnikov, but I forgot the name, but b6, hedgehog or something. And after this, you do this, and now you're attacking everything, right? And you're basically better here, winning. So after rook c6 here, we can trade everything, and you're just completely winning here. You have an extra piece, and yeah, we don't have to analyze further. You're just completely winning here. Anyway, let's go back to the game here. Here, Hikaru didn't play for c4, at least right away. So now this plays the Moroxi here. And here the engine deems c4 is a mistake. So Hikaru probably will not make a mistake on move 5. So I'm pretty confident that this was preparation from him. So anyway, let's keep going. And here you kind of go for Moroxi with c4 and d4, but it's a bit different nevertheless. If bishop takes, you can try to go for the Moroxi knight d5 thing, but it's still a bit different. Anyway, here he plays takes, d4, and they get this position. And you can see that this is actually kind of similar to what we just analyzed. But here he gets this position. Bishop f4 was the only move by the engine. I saw his recap too, that's what he said. And he didn't really want to play it, but yeah, he did it anyway. And we get this position, and here he's just slightly better, but it was basically a draw until his opponent played f6. So he was just waiting for a blunder, and his opponent blundered. Since it was blitz, right? It's easy to make mistakes. And Hikaru calculated all of this in blitz. Very amazing. And he finds this win, and he wins the game here. And so there's one more game, I think. Yeah, one more between Sam Shanklin and Ali Reza Firouzja. Here Sam's playing white against Ali Reza playing black. So they start with the ready, kind of like Fianchetto, and they transpose it kind of like English kind of like thing, maybe Benoni structure. Not really, but yeah, queen c2. We just keep developing. In these positions, white is always better according to the engine, but it's hard to prove your advantage, right? But usually white is always better. And here, Sam Shanklin found a really nice square for us tonight, right? Also, the d6 pawn is weak. So out of the opening, Sam has done really well. And look at the time, right? Ali Reza is on 2 minutes and has a worse position. So Sam's playing really well. He has a really nice position. And he keeps coming forward. Ali Reza trying to make counterplay, right? But it's pretty hard knowing that he's given up some squares in his position. But he finds a way to get counterplay here. But then they trade everything off into another one of these endgames. And since it's the king pawns on the same side, and knight versus bishop, they just agree to a draw here. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and my videos, and I'll see you next time. Happy holidays.